So let's see here. Get my sandals. It's funny, I've got all these different themes that occur to me throughout the day. And a desire on some level, I think, to share. And often, I feel a little bit like I sort of have to force myself into a topic, force myself to share something. Not so, it's not so, force is kind of a strong word, but because the peace is just so full, it's like, let's just enjoy the peace, share the peace. But yeah, on another level, there's a desire, I guess. I'm tripping over that, doesn't feel quite right. Desire to share. I don't know. So I'm just sort of freewheeling, experimenting, trying things out. Yeah, and there's a million different little thoughts, little tidbits. It's like I still haven't figured out what I'm doing. I really don't know. I keep having this thought of making a video about ants, A-N-T-S, killing ants. And it's sort of a bigger topic, somehow it branches out into a number of different areas. But I have ants in this place that I'm living. Saw one crawling around here recently, just a few moments ago. And I don't like them particularly. I don't hate them. I mean, yeah, they're just these little creatures moving around in the world. I mean, there's something miraculous just about an ant, a little one. Just all the, it's like, in the same way you might to a chef that made a really good meal, and you're a, what would the word be, connoisseur, or just somebody with a refined palate, or just somebody who appreciates good food, that you notice some little detail of the food or combination of the spices or presentation, you know, give a chef's kiss. I don't know. I can't think of a good analogy, something like that, but in that same way that you show appreciation to an artist for, you know, some aspect of their creation, and especially the more of a appreciator, or the more investment you have in a particular, if it's food or music, and the more knowledge and experience you have, the more kind of the details and the effort and the vitality. It's like the more layers, the more depth of the art, the creation, the food can speak to you. You can appreciate it on more levels. There's some similar feeling I have when I see a little ant crawling around. Oh, there he is. Let's see if I can. Towards the Creator, a similar feeling towards the Creator, towards God. It's like, really? All this specificity, all these details, and there's even down to these tiny little creatures moving around. Something kind of just remarkable about that. But that wasn't really even the point I wanted to make. Killing ants, I guess that was the topic I wanted to talk about. One of the topics that keeps kind of drifting into my consciousness. And you can see how religious traditions have wrestled with this question, and you can see just kind of organically how that could be a topic, an ethical topic, a moral topic, a spiritual topic. That would arise, within a religious or philosophical system. Yeah, it's the question of taking life, the question of killing. That feels like way too big of a topic for me to tackle, but just in a simple way, and the things that I've thought about it. I mean, on the one hand, you don't really want to kill anything. Like, why would I? You've got this miraculous little creature moving around, its little articulated legs and just all the details. And especially, if you've seen you can zoom in get up close with your eyes, but only so close. But especially if you've seen some of those, BBC or nature documentaries, getting into the world of insects, you can get up and just see all the details of one of these little beings. And when you think about it, and you see just, delight in creation, the marvel of it all. The gratuity of it all, that's a good word for it. You just see, I feel like I'm channeling Richard Rohr here, but just the unnecessary gratuity, the abundance of all this detail of these little ants moving around. And I'm sort of using ants as obviously just in particular, but I think also as a placeholder for any number of details that could be filled in. Just the abundance of detail, the levels of creation, the infinite variety. I guess that's kind of what the ant signifies here, and so the idea of just killing one of these little beings doesn't feel great. I don't think you have to be like a super sensitive person. I think most people have probably wrestled with, at least on some level, this idea. And so, you start to think about different strategies. How do you interact with these creatures, with these beings? You've got somebody like the Dalai Lama. What's his actual name? Tenzing Norgay. I can't remember what his given name is, his birth name. But the Dalai Lama talking about sometimes he just lets a mosquito feed. I think I'm remembering this right. It was a video I saw a long time ago. Maybe I read it in a book. I think it was a video. But that he doesn't just automatically kill a mosquito. Sometimes he'll just say, I've got plenty of blood. I'm glad to donate some to you. That seems like a very Buddhist, very pro-sentient life. May all sentient life be happy, healthy, whole. Very on brand. It's kind of a silly way to say it, but very Buddhist. Or just compassionate. Just a compassionate thing to and just sort of, in opposition of the kind of reflex of killing this bug that is invading one's space and biting, or in this case, blood-sucking. But he's kind of taken that, he's looking at that and saying, it's not going to kill me to spare a little drop of blood. So I'm trying to paint a broad picture here. In this question of interfacing with, interacting with other creatures in life, killing, even at this kind of smaller scale of an ant or a mosquito. You've got the Jains, Jains, the Jains in India. Elsewhere, I don't know, I think maybe just in India. Well, I don't know, maybe they're all over, but I believe they originate in India. And you see images of Jain monks that often wear face coverings and sweep the path before them, all in an effort not to, I think the face coverings, the idea is like not to breathe in even microorganisms and thereby taking sentient life, killing sentient life, sweeping the path before them so they're not stepping on bugs and microorganisms. And so, yeah, you see how this train of thought can lead you down a very austere, I guess extreme, without trying to sound too disrespectful, but it can take you into these extremes. So yeah, on the one hand, there's this reverence and awe for life. But I want to try to speak into the kind of balancing perspective on this. And before I say that, with ants, another thing, because I don't want them in here. Let me just say that much. This is not their place of residence. I don't really want them in here. And so what to do in that case? Well, there are a number of sort of mitigating steps that you can take. And again, I'm sort of sketching this out, hopefully that you can see just in the concrete. some larger principles. Yeah, ahimsa, nonviolence, also is kind of a piece of this whole equation. You know, I'm somebody who thinks about those things. Interesting philosophical terrain. But yeah, there's in between just crushing these little guys, killing them, and letting them have free reign over my domain. Got one of my friends right here. I'm trying to see if he'll make a cameo. Don't be afraid, little one. Yeah, there's some options, and it's like keeping your kitchen clean is one great option, and that will take care of 90% probably of the issue. And I do as much as I can, but I'm not going to stress about having a perfectly clean kitchen all the time, because that's also not healthy. But yeah, just general cleanliness will reduce the incentive for the ants to come in. So you can environmentally, within a given context, change and rearrange by understanding the motives of what's drawing these ants. You know, search for food, sugar, salt, I believe also. But by understanding that, you know, just maintaining a clean environment, that already makes a big difference. And so it's like a preventative, so you don't have to even worry about the problem. You just take care of it at a more fundamental level, a few steps back. But that's not always possible. The other thing is, like with spiders, for example, I feel like this is getting a little bit neurotic, but maybe not, I don't know. But with spiders, and I even get scorpions sometimes showing up in this little space here. Cockroaches, so slightly bigger than an ant. I often, always, I think, pretty much, will just find like a little box. I've got a little matchbox that works pretty well. Or you can use a cup and a piece of paper, and you catch them and contain them, and then bring them outside where they belong. And that's fine. I think that's a great solution, so you don't kill them, and put them back in a place that they're adapted to, well suited to, and you don't have to worry about getting bit. More peace of mind. The other thing is, and this is, I think, at a kind of a deeper level, I think there is an intelligence to these creatures. I think intelligence is a very fundamental aspect of creation, consciousness. And I'm convinced that you can communicate with animals, insects, large and small, with life. And I'm even more convinced that it doesn't hurt to try. Yeah, it's a big topic. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big topic and going out on a limb here, but I shouldn't say I'm totally convinced, but there's a kind of intimacy, a way of moving through the world with a kind of intimacy of relationship that feels healthy and feels supportive. And, people talk to their plants. There's somebody called Anna Breitenbach, I think. And there's some really interesting documentaries and interviews with her and her interactions. It's like you can interface with that level of consciousness of an animal, individual animal, and also kind of the collective field of the species. I don't really have that aptitude that strongly, but I find her story very credible. I find it theoretically very possible. And anyways, I'm sort of kind of getting off topic, but another strategy, something I do, is I try to communicate to these little ones that this is not their space, that I'd like to have them leave, that I'd like to have them be outside, that I will move them outside. I try to have that kind of just interaction. It's almost like you're bringing subjectivity to the world around you. St. Francis, preaching to the birds, having that sort of interface, that fluidity of communication. I also, again, even further out on the branch here, have a sense that because I do try to show kindness to these creatures, I think that registers on some level, and I tend to have more harmonious interactions with God's beautiful little ones, God's beautiful creatures. So anyways, there's just something wholesome and healthy about it. But so that's something, communicating your intent at that level. So there's all these sort of mitigating strategies, non-violent approaches, and you pursue all of those things because you don't want to crush a little ant, a little bug. You don't want to I've got a bunny, just this cute, precious little bunny, cottontail out front. And they're just so sweet and innocent. It's like you don't want to hurt a bunny. And some animals are more, I think the term I've heard used is charismatic, cute. They're more kind of charismatic to our sense of, like a blobfish is not a very endearing or charismatic, I guess in its own way, because it's so strange looking. But yeah, like a bunny or a cat, or there's some animals that are just very cute, and I have to summon. I don't feel that same sort of warmth and cuteness towards a spider or a scorpion or an ant, but so that's another part of this equation. That's kind of just human nature. But yeah, you try to show kindness, and you do what you can in a proactive sense, not to kill. But and so I just wanted to lay all of that out, and probably with way more detail than I needed to, but that can also become very imprisoning, that kind of psychological, it can become a very rigid way of approaching life. I gave the example of the Jains, and that to me is not freedom or liberation. I mean, maybe I shouldn't use them so specifically because I haven't really in depth studied the Jains, but just in my own consciousness, I've seen examples of how you can get so uptight or on eggshells or anxious, concerned about, every little aspect of your life having to be perfectly nonviolent. Again, it's that perfectionistic purity spiral, right? Where you have a good value, something that matters, but then it gets taken to an extreme, and becomes a prison, becomes a kind of fundamentalism, becomes unhealthy, dysfunctional. And, it's like sometimes I'll find a bunch of little ants crawling around in the sink. I've had a long day and I'm tired. I don't have a lot of energy, or I'm stressed out, or, and I need to do the dishes, or I need to wash my clothes, or, I've just got other things going on. And so it's like, am I just gonna sit here and carefully extract each of these little ones? Ideally the kitchen should have been perfectly clean and this should have never happened. But again, it's like ideal and reality. You have the ideals as aspirations, as like the pole star that you navigate by, that you move in that direction, that you help to orient by. But then there's this reality that we're living in on earth, and you can't take on the perfection of morality as one little human. See, the kind of flaw in all of that is you are a part of creation. You are a human. It's not like you are a God, separate, removed, aloof from the creation. No, you're thrust into it. You're in this whole thing. And it means you've got a human psychology. It means you've got a human life that you need to live. And God is not asking for perfection. I think he's asking for you to be thoughtful, to be caring, to be kind. But yeah, so I'll just turn on the water and wash those ants down the drain. I mean, that's the long and short of it. I don't delight in that. I don't like doing that. I would prefer not to do that. And again, like I said, I try to mitigate it and find other ways of going about it. Ideally, I would not do that. I would just sort of dematerialize the ants, phase them out of existence, Star Trek style, and rematerialize them, at a safe distance out in nature. But yeah, you gotta, because you can get so rigid that you're just stressing over having killed an ant. And it's like, you didn't create this world, you didn't create this predicament, you didn't create all the complications that God throws at you. And you don't have to carry all that weight, you just do your best. Let me say that one more time. Let me put claps in between. You do your best. Actually, I think I should be clapping with the word. You do your best. That felt better. You just do your best, and don't stress over. See, this is how it starts to branch into bigger conversations, like, this kind of, you can get really caught up with, in terms, I don't even know if I want to go down that road. Yeah, maybe it's enough just to give the example, and if it's useful, you can extrapolate into your own world and your own experience. you have to allow yourself to, you have to live, you have to allow yourself to live. And you can't let your ideals, your ideology, your ideals ruin your life, keep you from living. There's a point of diminishing returns on everything. It's that teaching. Every form has a shadow, even, something as high-minded as non-killing, non-harming, ahimsa, non-violence. You see how in the details of the daily living, it's a prescription for a very difficult life. It's like because you're not God ultimately. And here you see the wisdom of something like the Bhagavad Gita, right? Where it talks about Krishna talking to Arjuna. Arjuna fretting like, how can I possibly, I can't do this. How can I go out into battle and kill and harm these people that I know, family, friends? And God says to Arjuna, God says something like, I've already killed them. It's not up to you to take, it's not up to you, the taking and giving of life. It's already been done. You just have to go out and play your role. I haven't actually read the Bhagavad Gita. At least, I don't think I have. Maybe little parts. I just heard people riffing on that idea. But you can see the wisdom in it. That you can get so precious about your ideals, good ideals, the best of intentions, that you stop living. And God's saying, no. You have to get out there. You have to get out into the mess. You have to get out into the fray. I brought you here for a reason. I want you to live. You're not going to be perfect, and God knows that. Now it's also, again, it's like, this is why I wanted to try to sketch out a bunch of dimensions to this territory, because it's multifaceted, and it's not straightforward. And there's ways you can really go off the rails in different directions. Because it's also not saying, it's not obviously, I hope it's abundantly clear, it's not the glorification of violence. Because at the same time that we're put in these little ethical quandaries, ethical predicaments, and you have to live at some level, it doesn't feel great taking any life, really, but you also have to live your life. At the same time that we're put into all these, a part of the equation is that God has given us the capacity to feel and to reason and to often I just feel like, man, what the hell is going on here? Like, what in the actual HE double hell? What in the heck is going on here? We're in this we're just put into all these quandaries and binds here on planet Earth. And so I don't really have a great answer other than to say I've fallen into a lot of these traps and these rigidities, and it seems to be part of the path, part of the experience here. But I'm not God. That's one piece of wisdom that is important to keep in mind. I didn't create all of this, at least not in this individuated form of Wesley, of myself. And so you don't have to carry the weight and the guilt of all that stuff. It's like, because you just can't carry the weight of the world. I mean, it's important just to have the humility to recognize that you and I, that we are just, on the one level, there's this depth dimension, there's this infinite dimension, unmanifested, eternal wholeness, emptiness, fullness, however you want to say it, God. But in these little individuated vehicles, little individuated forms, we're just creatures moving around here on the planet. How could we possibly bear the weight of all of that? And yet our minds would have us do precisely that, and yeah, we've got these confused minds, complex psychology, trauma, wounding, these animal bodies with nervous systems that are all